When it comes to video game genres, the one that always seems to evolve the most over time has to be the horror genre. First, it was text-based games with games like The Lurking Horror, then it moved on to point-and-click games like with Clock Tower, then Resident Evil kicked off the survival horror genre, and with the 2010s and early 2020s, it was Mascot Horror with the introduction of the FNaF series. I've been a huge fan of the FNaF series since I was about 9, playing it on my old iPad. Then, once I got my old laptop, I immediately got all the games on Steam as well. As time went on, I slowly grew out of the series, but I still like it to this day. Though FNaF 3 was always my personal favorite, I think I would have to pick FNaF 4 as the most objectively horrifying game in the entire series. And in today's video, I'll be going over its gameplay and its atmosphere to explain why I think Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is a perfect horror game. But with that intro out of the way, let's get into it. The gameplay of Five Nights at Freddy's 4 is probably the best part about it. To recap those who forgot or simply never played it, you basically have 4 things to check on for most of the nights. The 2 hallways to your right and left, the closet in front of you, and the bed behind you. Bonnie and Chica are in the hallways to your sides. There's technically a 3rd character in the hallways too, but I'll talk about that when we get to the closet section. When you run up to either of the hallways, you have to closely listen to hear the sound of breathing. If you hear breathing, then you have to hold the door shut because the animatronic is right behind the door waiting to strike. When you don't hear the breathing, then you can use your flashlight to check down the hall. It's very simple by design, but it makes for good horror, because most of the time, the threat that you're going to be facing is one that you can't even see. Occasionally, you will see them down the hallway, but they very quickly hide back into the shadows when spotted, and the only thing that you'll be able to see most of the time are just their eyes peering at you from the darkness. Just from these 2 examples, it's enough to make a good horror game, but that's only half of the things that you need to keep track of. The closet's mechanics work as such. Foxy will appear in the closet after making it into your room during the night. Once he's in your closet, he needs to come out of the closet because we love and accept him for who he is. He will slowly become more and more active until he's fully active, and leaps from the closet to scare you. The way that you calm him down, so to speak, is by occasionally checking on him in the closet by shining your light at him. And if he's gotten too active, then you close the closet doors until he calms down again. This is a pretty good mechanic, as it makes it so you don't have to constantly be checking up on him, and he can be left to his own devices for a bit, which makes balancing Bonnie and Chica a lot easier. Speaking of Bonnie and Chica, this is the 3rd character in the hallway that I mentioned earlier. Foxy starts in the hallway and will make it into your room to hide in your closet. However, it is possible to keep this from happening. Yep, that's right, it's entirely possible to stop Foxy from ever entering your closet, which is why Bonnie and Chica must take priority most of the night. Finally, the last mechanic is the bed. This is where Freddy resides. Freddles will slowly appear on the bed, with the most being able to be on the bed being 3. Once 3 Freddles are on the bed, Freddy will be on the bed after a short amount of time, and once you check back again, he'll jump scare you. The way to prevent this from happening is by shining your light at the bed every now and then in order to scare away the Freddles. From this gameplay loop, it's enough to keep things simple to understand, but also complicated enough to keep you on your toes throughout the night. And because of the fact that you're listening to sounds for most of the time, if you just so happen to miss those sounds, well, it's game over. And FNaF 4 has some of the best jump scares in the entire series. I'll play a few of them now to show you what I mean. I love these jump scares. From the flickering light showing you the first signs of danger, to the jump scares only happening once you shine your light, giving the impression that they were waiting in the darkness to scare you. From the way they get into your face and scream, it's just so good, I love it. FNaF 4's change in atmosphere from the previous 3 games is apparent when you look at the setting for each of the games. FNaF 1 and 2 took place inside of a pizzeria, and had character designs and environments that matched it as such. Both of these environments were places we commonly associate with joy and happiness, But the environments inside of the game flip this idea on its head, and now suddenly we're scared of this place, despite there being no apparent reason to be scared. FNaF 3 takes place inside of a horror attraction, so naturally a scary atmosphere is something to be expected. I mean, we kinda expected that already since it's a horror game, but the setting itself tells us that we're supposed to be in a place to be scared. Initially, this might have taken away some of its scary atmosphere, but once at the second night, we get introduced to one of, if not the best, character in the entire series, Springtrap. And he doesn't behave like most of the animatronics we've encountered so far. There's something almost human to his movements. This created an atmosphere and setting that, while initially just a spoopy horror attraction, now has the potential to generate real scares. FNaF 4, in my opinion, is leagues better than any of the other 3 games combined when it comes to setting and atmosphere. The reasons why are due to, in part, how people are, but also due to the players themselves. See, back in the early days of humanity, when tribes of hunter-gatherers dotted the lands, we weren't at the top of the food chain, and humans were often prey to much larger animals. Look, I know this came out of nowhere, but trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. And one of the biggest survival weak points of early humans was the fact that we weren't nocturnal and couldn't see in the dark. So this meant that people developed a fear of the dark because of the fact that we were hiding from predators that hunted during the night. In Five Nights at Freddy's 4, this is perfectly demonstrated, as we are essentially prey of the animatronics hunting us. This is something that happens in other games in the series as well, but in this game it's a lot more prevalent, because this game is the darkest in terms of lighting. FNaF 4's settings perfectly tackles this innate fear that has been passed down to us from our ancestors, instead of tackling the fear that only a percentage of the population has, that being a fear of animatronics. But that's only half of the puzzle, because this atmosphere and setting also directly attacks the player. Maybe it's just my personal experience, but I feel like people have also had similar cases to mine as well. Basically, Five Nights at Freddy's came out when I was really young, and because of that, I basically became afraid of every single character in the game, and I thought that one night I would wake up to see them staring at me from an open door or closet. Especially Chica. This one frame from FNaF 1 just unsettles me in a way that I can't describe. FNaF 4 directly attacks this fear of mine. The nightmares that I've had as a kid were essentially hand-amended by Scott to the point where I think this game was specifically made to scare people like me. Now the nightmares that I would have as a kid are a literal game that I can play, and I can guarantee that I'm not the only person who thinks this way too. I know I didn't really talk much about the story of FNaF 4, but honestly that's a whole other can of worms that I don't really feel like opening right now. I'll save a video like that for another date. FNaF 4 might not be perfect on all fronts, but the fear that it instills in me and many others is probably why it's very popular. The gameplay loop is near perfect, and its atmosphere and settings tackle some of the biggest fears of any player. If you haven't tried out the game yet, I highly encourage you to do so. This was a fun deep dive into one of the games that made up my childhood, and I wouldn't mind doing it with a couple other games. In fact, I have some videos for that in the works already, so if you want to stick around to see more videos like this, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. With that said, that's going to be it from me for now. Thanks for watching, I'll see you guys next time, and until then, stay safe and take care.